And then you got into tech, right? And
Yeah.
working in the technology
Yeah.
sector, right? So religious studies, MBA, technology.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
explain that.
So I'm a tech saleswoman. I'm
Mhm.
currently at Qualtrics,
Okay.
which is an experience management platform. And I come from DocuSign, and DocuSign is obviously a bit more familiar, kind of a
Yeah.
household name. But I made my transition into sales and sales and tech sales specifically, and I kind of loved it. Oh my god, I love the rush.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. So yes, quite the journey, but I
S-
love where I'm at.
So when got hired, right? What were they looking for? So let's say with DocuSign. So let's say there's someone that's listening right now and it's like, oh, well,
Yeah.
I'm interested in getting into tech, so can you shed some light?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, they were certainly not looking for a religious studies major who had a background in manufacturing. So yes, there's always a way, and it's really about being creative. So actually, when I was looking into roles, when I decided I was going to make the transition, and we were like peak COVID, right? I mean,
Hmm.
peak pandemic, I should say, and so the tech industry was booming. I mean, it was like the hot thing to do. It was the hot place to be, and I was adamant about getting into that party, and I was going to do whatever it took. And so I got a little creative. The role that I was working for at DocuSign was specific, so it was a vertical that I was
Hmm.
working in, which was manufacturing and retail. And so I leveraged my background in manufacturing and really highlighted the skills that I thought would be transferable to a role in tech. And so it was really. I mean, I got the creative juices going when I was interviewing, to say the least, to just sell yourself, you know.
Right. So when you go back in time and you're talking about the manufacturing industry, and that was a family business, right? But
Yeah.
what you learned, early on is people skills. This,
Right.
s-
Absolutely. Absolutely. Fundamental skills. So, yes, it was a family business,
mhm.
a business that is near and dear to my heart. I do love the place. I mean, I grew up there. Um, but I sold myself on the fact that I was, shifting over. And so I basically sold the idea that the people that I was now going to be selling to
Mhm.
were the people that I know better than I know anyone else. These are people whose hands I've been shaking for the last 6 years. These are people who I've got on speed dial. I know these people better than most people in tech know
Mhm.
these people, right? And so it's all about knowing your buyer.
Right.
And that was the theme I really stuck with throughout the interview process. Um, I will say, because I imagine that this is kind of where you're going with this, is um, the market's pretty saturated,
Hmm.
and we have the pandemic to thank for that, right? And I think the tech industry just became, like I said, the party to be at. And so it's become really saturated. And so it's all about setting yourself apart. And
Sure.
so knowing who you're competing against when you're interviewing, when you're applying, when you're selling yourself
Hmm.
is key. And so I did a deep dive, and I needed to know who was selling technology and how was I different from them in a way that would make me special, in a way that would make me better, in a way that I could capitalize on, And so it was some of the manufacturing stuff. It was a lot of the nonprofit stuff I did on the side.
Sure.
You know, activism I think is so important, whether as a side hustle or a full time gig. I do think that if you're not an activist
Hmm.
now, take some time and think about what you're passionate about and try to do something about it. It could be healthcare. It could be student debt. It could be social issues. It could be whatever. It could be climate change. It could be whatever. But as long as you're putting in a little bit of time and effort into that cause, I think, one, it makes for a much more well-rounded person.
Sure.
But I think being in those spaces and working as an activist helped me become a better communicator. Developed some thick skin.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing like taking the mic for a Q&A with, a bunch of people in a room who are just looking to rip you apart. Nothing builds thick skin like an experience like that. And those are transferable skills that I think apply to the professional world, the tech world, whatever. So
Oh, absolutely.